So the topic we are starting today, that is a poverty, right? Poverty. We know that poverty is the chronic problem of India, and due to this problem, India is facing a number of other issues, right? Like problem of law and order, problem of low production, right? So, and so many other problems as well. We will discuss in detail in the chapter. So, let me start first of all with the meaning of poverty. That what do we mean by this concept of poverty? What is poverty? So, first point we are going to discuss today, that what is poverty? As far as the meaning of or the definition of poverty is concerned, right? So I would like to tell you that poverty is a state or condition. Poverty is a state or condition where an individual or a household lacks the minimum threshold level of consumption necessary to meet the basic necessities of life. To meet the basic necessities of life. So this is a simple definition of poverty, which we are discussing now. So in this definition, let me tell you that there are 2-3 points. One is that poverty is a state or condition, right? Poverty is a state or condition where some individual or household lacks the minimum threshold level of consumption. Okay, for what? Necessary to meet the basic necessities of life. So these are the 3 important points in this particular definition, we can say, in this particular meaning of this poverty, right? In this particular meaning of poverty. One is poverty is a state or condition. It is a, we can say, which is related to the consumption. So first point from this definition, which I conclude, that is a poverty is related to the consumption. Consumption, right? It has not income. Let me write, right? Not income. So this is the one point. And the second important point in this is that, right, so an individual may lack the minimum threshold level of consumption, right, due to there may be 2 reasons. One reason is that lack of income. I am not having the sufficient income for that, or number 2, right, lack of willingness to spend income. Lack of willingness to spend income. So there are 2 important points. Please note it. Please note these 2 important points. That poverty, we cannot say that poverty means the lack of income, because if a person is having sufficient income to meet the basic necessities of his life, but still that person is not willing to spend that income, right, still that person will be living in a very poor, in a very pathetic, in a very miserable condition, right? Because your empowerment, your strength, right, that is related with your consumption level, not with your level of income, right? So if we see the various dimensions of the poverty, that is your education, that is your health, right, that is your standard of living. The three are the important dimensions of the poverty if we see, right? So if you are having an income of rupees 10 lakh per month, let us suppose, right, but you are not ready to send your children to the school, right, and you are not ready to get the medical checkup done, right, if your child is suffering from some problem, or if you are not providing the nutritious food to your children despite having an income of rupees 10 lakh, right, or if you don't uh, ready to spend your income to raise the you can say the standard of living of your family, so then that income of rupees 10 lakh, right, would not uh, you can say help you in leading a healthy and happier life, right? So that means it is something which is directly related with the consumption, not with the level of income. Yes, it is true that your level of consumption may be low due to the low level of income. It is true, right? But the high level of income does not guarantee that your level of consumption will be higher. Okay, so this is an important point to be noted here, right? And the third important interpretation or the third important conclusion from this definition is that, right, basic necessities of life, right? Basic necessities of life. So this is the third important point in this definition, right, which I have mentioned here, right? So as far as the basic necessities of life are concerned, I would like to tell you that basic necessities of life are not the same, or not the same, right, everywhere, right, for everybody and every time on the planet. Okay, so the basic necessities of life are not the same, right, number one, everywhere, for everybody and every time on the planet, right? Because the basic necessity of life keep on changing with the place, and the basic necessities of life keep on changing with the age. Basic necessities of life keep on changing with the time as well, right? So that is why, so that is why we can say basic necessities of life is not a static phenomena, right? So it keeps on changing, right? It keeps on changing with change in time and place. So this is an important thing, right? It keeps on changing with change in time and place. Okay. So therefore, if your basic necessities of life are keep on changing with time and place, then we can conclude that, right, the we can say threshold level of consumption, right, or income, right, required to fulfill the basic necessities also keep on changing, right, also keep on changing. So please bear this in mind. So poverty is a dynamic concept, right, which keep on changing with place and time, right? So this is an important point here, right? So I hope it would be clear to everybody of you. You may not be having any doubt related with this slide, or related up to uh, related what we have discussed so far, right? Is it clear to everybody, or somebody has any doubt? If you have any doubt, for the new students, I would like to tell you, Number one, you can raise your hand, right? Or you can type a message in the chat box also if you want to ask something, right? So I will handle your query immediately. Okay. So this is up to you. So I hope it's clear to you, right? So now the next point is that the next on the next slide, what we are going to discuss now, that World Bank World Bank defines poverty as as deprivation in well-being, defines poverty as deprivation in well-being, right? And comprises many dimensions and comprises many dimensions that is there. It includes low income, okay? It includes low income and inability to acquire the inability to acquire the right to acquire the basic goods and services, necessary for survival with dignity. So this is the definition given by the World Bank, right? So as per the World Bank's definition of poverty, right, we can say, so one thing which the World Bank has made it clear that poverty is a state of deprivation, right? So one thing which is very much important here, that when we think about poverty, we think about the deprivation also, right? So it means poverty is a state of deprivation, right? Deprivation of what? Deprivation of well-being, right? Well-being in different dimensions, we can say, right? Well-being, right? So well-being can be in different dimensions, right? There can be economic well-being as well, economic dimension of well-being, right? You are economically well off, that can be there, right? You are having sufficient income to meet the basic necessities of your life, right? That is the social well-being also, right? Equality, justice, social justice, like there is a gender gap between the male and the female, right? So the female's well-being is females' well-being suffers in our society as compared to the males. If we talk about the social well-being, right? So females are deprived in a number of areas as compared to the male in our society, right? So that is the social deprivation, right? In terms of the female, if I would like to talk here, right? And the next point is that that can be the environmental well-being, right? Healthy environment, good environment, right, for living. So it can be the environmental well-being as well, right? So it can be the political well-being, it can be the cultural well-being, right? So many dimensions of the well-being can be there, right? So political well-being also, right? So political well-being also, right? Like I have discussed many days before in our class that in the, we can say, Arab world, in Saudi Arabia and like these countries, right, the women were given the right to vote in 21st century only, right? So before that, before the 21st century, the women of those countries were not enjoying the right to vote. So uh, they were deprived, right, we can say, politically, right? So their political rights were not there, right? So similarly, right, so you may be deprived of your civil rights in some society, you may be deprived of your political rights in some society, you may be deprived of your economic rights in some, we can say, society, right? you may be deprived of the healthy environment in some society, right? So that is there that World Bank, according to World Bank, poverty is a state of deprivation of well-being in various domains, various dimensions, right? So there can be a number of domains and dimensions, right? And the next thing is, which is important here, it includes low income and inability to acquire the basic goods and services, right? So now what is there? Low income. So according to the World Bank, the poverty is a phenomenon which is related with the low income and inability of an individual or household, right? Or a household, we can say, right, to acquire the basic goods and services, right? What? To acquire the basic goods and services, right? So that is the point. Acquire the basic goods and services. That is the point here, right? And for what? The basic goods and services are required for what? These are required for two things, right? So one important thing for which the basic goods and services are required, that is for survival, right? And further, the World Bank said that it is not only survival, it is the survival with dignity. So we can say that the important point here is that survival with dignity, which is important here. Okay, so these are the two things, right, which according to the World Bank are important, right? So survival, not only survival, survival with dignity, right? So if we talk about the women in the rural India, right, in particularly in the agricultural families or in other, you can say labor class families, we can say, right? So women are surviving there, right? But their dignity is at stake. They are not living the dignified life because they don't have the money, right, in their pockets. They have always to depend on the male in the family, right, to fulfill their basic needs even, right? So that is also the point. Right, so you can say, right, so they they have to do a number of household courses, right? Even if their health is not allowing for that also. So that means, right, dignified life is important. It is not only survival, right? So even the beasts, even the animals, right, uh, right, are also surviving, right? But man, what is the difference between the man and the animal is that we live a dignified life, right? So this is the important point. So this definition of World Bank is very much important in this respect, right? So first thing is poverty is a state of deprivation. Poverty is a condition, we can say, right? It is a state of deprivation, right? Deprivation in various respects. And second, low income and inable, and second, low income and the inability of an individual or household to acquire the basic goods and services, and for what? For survival with dignity. That is an important aspect. That is an important point here, if I would like to say, right? So the next important point is, now we are moving further, right? So we have talked in the previous uh, lecture so far, right, that there is the threshold limit, right? There is a threshold limit, right? So we have talked about this threshold limit into you can say, right, perspectives, two perspectives. One perspective is that we have talked it in the form of in the term of income, right? Second, in the term of expenditure, right? We have talked about this, right? So expenditure necessary to do the basic minimum consumption which is required to meet the necessities of life, right? Income, right? That level of income which is required to meet the basic necessities of life, right? Consumption level, that basic level of consumption which is required to meet the basic necessities of life. So we have discussed it in terms of the income, it in terms of expenditure, it in terms of the consumption also, right? But in all the three, you can say, right, perspectives, right, the thing is same, right? So it means there is some, we can say, there is some threshold, right? And there is some threshold, right? So this is the threshold, which is the basic, right? This is the threshold, which is the income or level of expenditure, okay, which is the income or level of expenditure, okay, to meet your, right, to meet your basic necessities, to meet your basic necessities, right? So we can take it this way also, or otherwise we can take it this way also. Let's suppose this is an income scale, right? At this income scale, right, so here is a point, right? This point is known as the, we can say, the basic, right, the minimum threshold point, we can say that, right? The minimum threshold point, okay, minimum threshold point, right? So this we can say threshold point, right, divides the total population of the country into two groups, right? So one group of this population, that is the poor, right? And the second group, right, that is the not poor, right? So we can say that this is a threshold point, this is a threshold line, this is a threshold limit of income, right? Minimum threshold income, minimum threshold expenditure level, minimum threshold consumption level, right? So below which, if you are consuming or if you are having income below that point, or if you are having, if you are incurring expenditure below that point, then obviously you will be poor, right? So you are not doing the expenditure which is necessary or sufficient to meet the basic necessities of life, right? And if you are doing expenditure beyond that, right, so then you are not poor. It means the basic necessities of life of you are being fulfilled, right? So Peter, that is why this basic, right, this we can say threshold line, this threshold line we can say, right, is known as the poverty line, right? So this threshold line is known as the poverty line, right? This is known as the poverty line, right? And and here it is important to tell you that this is the poverty line, all right? So those who are living below this poverty line, those are known as the below poverty line people, which you common, right, which you commonly, you can say, read or hear or listen, right? That is the BPL, below poverty line population, right? And this population, which is the above this line, that is known as the APL population, means above poverty line population, right? So what is there? This is the one important point, APL and BPL, right? BPL is below poverty line. It tells us that what is the percentage of population which is living in such a state, in such a condition that they are not able to fulfill their basic necessities of life even, right? And what percentage of population is that, right, which are able to meet their basic necessities of life, right? So beta, this is the, we can say, poverty line basically, right? So now a very simple point, right, which I would like to discuss with this only, right, here only, right? That is, we can say, the utility of the poverty line, right? Utility of the poverty line. What is the basic utility of the poverty line? Now we will discuss about that, right? What is the basic utility of this poverty line, right? So beta, one thing, and first, which is a very important thing, right, that we can say, it helps to know the government or to know the state, right, about the, right, it helps to know the state about the percentage of population, right, percentage of population which is a BPL, right? Which is BPL, which is below poverty line. This is a very important thing. Okay? So because until and unless we know that what percent of population is living below poverty line, we won't be able to, right, draft a particular strategy, draft a plan, right? So that is why, right, draft a action, right? We can say plan and action, right, to help those people. So this is a very important thing. This is a very important point. One thing is that, right, and the second important thing is that right, second important thing is that, beta, let me take it like this also. This is the poverty line here, right? And let me mark here that one person is living below poverty line here, and one person is living below poverty line here, one person is living below poverty line here, and one person is living below poverty line here, right? So the poverty line concept helps us to know the deviation of a particular household or the individual from the poverty line threshold income or poverty line threshold expenditure, right? Let's suppose the poverty line threshold income is rupees 100, right? And this person is earning rupees 90, that is why he is below poverty line. This person is earning rupees 70, that's why he is below poverty line. This person is earning rupees 30, that's why he is below poverty line. And this person is earning rupees 10, that's why he is below poverty line, right? So now what's there? All of these persons are below poverty line. All of these persons are poor. But but if we see, right, you can say in between these persons, right, this particular person, right, who is sitting here at this level, one is this, and this particular person who is sitting at this level, right? So they are living very, 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 very pathetic uh, life, right? So they are living in very, very pathetic or very, very miserable life, right? Living a very pathetic or miserable life. So that is why they need more support by the government, right, to pull them out of the poverty or to bring at least them closer to the poverty line, right? So otherwise, if the government would not give any attention on these two peoples, let's say A and B, right? So then they would not be able to, right, jump out of the poverty, right? I I I think, right, in their entire life, because the gap is so much wider that it is not possible for them to cover the gap at their own. So that is why, right, it, you can say, it guides the government, right? It gives information to the government that what is the extent of poverty, right? Right? What is the, we can say, degree of seriousness of the problem, right? So, right. So what is the gap of uh, the person, right, who is sitting at the tail end from the minimum threshold income which is required to meet the necessities of life, and what is that gap, right? The larger the gap, the more serious the problem would be, and the smaller the gap, the less serious the problem would be. The larger the gap, the more efforts the government would have to do, right, to help the people to bring out of the poverty, right? And the smaller the gap, the less efforts the government would have to do, right? Even the small efforts by the government would help in that case, right? So the second important point is this, that this is the utility of the poverty line concept, right? And the third important point is that, right, the third important point is that, right, it helps the government, right? It helps the government to plan a, right, to plan a tax strategy, to plan a tax strategy or a developmental action, right? Or a developmental action. How the government knows that that these are the persons who are sitting above the poverty line, right? And they are meeting their basic necessities of life very comfortably, right? So that is why the government needs to focus its attention on these people who are below the poverty line, right? So how is it possible if the government wants to promote the equality in the society, then the government has to do to shift the income from that section to this section, right? To shift the income from that section to, we can say, this section. So how it can be shifted? All right, so there can be subsidies for these people, right? There can be a number of schemes for these people, like the government of India has initiated a number of schemes, like we can say Manrega, etc. Number of other schemes are also there. We will discuss, right? Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, etc., etc. Schemes are there, right? So APL to BPL, we have to transfer the income, right? So the way is that the government can, right, put more burden of taxes on these people, collect the money from them, and that money the government could think of spending for the welfare of these people who are living the below poverty line, right? So this is the basic utility of the poverty line concept, right? So if anybody has any doubt up to this point, you can please ask. Otherwise, give me the feedback up to this point that are you getting what I am teaching you, or is there any problem in understanding? If somebody is facing any language problem, please tell me, right? If somebody is facing any difficulty in understanding, please tell me, right? If somebody needs more elaboration, please tell me, right? So I would like the feedback from particularly Khushi, Satakshi, right? You are the new persons in class today, right? And then Aman, are you getting better? Asika, are you getting right? So please tell me either whether you are getting or not, right? Please type a message and send that message so that I may be able to know that whether you are getting or not, right? So otherwise I would need to change my strategy according to your needs, right? So that's why. So it's better if you can help me, right? By just giving your feedback only. So Khushi, are you getting, are you understanding what I am teaching?
Sir, actually, I'm facing some network issues.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. If there is voice issue, you can type the message. Not a problem. Satakshi, are you getting what I am teaching?
Yes, sir.
I'm not listening you people. What is the reason?
Hello.
Sorry. Okay. Voice is okay. 100% voice. So not an issue, right? But you please give me your feedback. Okay. Okay. You are listening each other. Okay. But your voice is not coming to me. What's the problem? Okay. Leave this. And Nishant, can you tell me if you have listened them that whether they are getting or not? You please type a message. Okay, you are understanding. Okay, 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 it's okay. Hmm. Okay, it's clear. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, at Kushi's end there is internet problem. Okay, no problem. Okay, so beta, this is the concept of the poverty line, right? So now, uh, let me tell you that on the basis of the poverty line, right? On the basis of the poverty line, we can further categorize the population into various groups. We can further categorize the population into various groups, right? So that will help the government in policy determination as well, right? So let me take an example, right? So let's suppose this is the y-axis, right? And this is the x-axis, let's suppose, right? And on this x-axis and y-axis, let's suppose this is the poverty line. Okay, this is the poverty line. Let's suppose, right? So, and now let me tell you that in this case, right? So this is the actually this is the actual condition of the people living here, right? So it means these are the people, right? So there may be different sets of conditions, right? So let me first uh, right draw here all the sets of conditions, right? So then we will go further. Okay, let us draw it. So this is the one point. Okay, so now let me take it x-axis here, right? And here is the poverty line again. Poverty line, I'm keeping at the same level, poverty line, right? Right, and these are the persons here, right? So one person is sitting here, one person is sitting here, one person is sitting here, one is sitting here, one is sitting here. So one person is sitting here, right? One is here, one is here, and one person is here. So it can be like this also, right? So this is the actual condition of the persons who are living there, right? And the next condition can be like this, right? So let me take the next condition here, right? So next condition is that this is the x-axis and y-axis. So let me draw it here. So one condition can be this here in this respect. Okay, and now let me so, okay, so now there is a one condition can be this, right? So person is here, right? So here, here, it can be like this also, the light. Okay, so the next thing is that the next the next case, let me take here. So as far as the next case is concerned here, this is the x-axis and y-axis, and here is the poverty line, if you are seeing here, right? Poverty line, and this can be the case here, right? So we can say it can be here, here, here. So it can be like this, right? And the next fifth and last case here can be like this, right? Fifth and last case here can be like this, we can say. So here is, let's suppose, the poverty line, right? So now the people are at this level, at this stage, right? So this is there, right? So now these are the 5 categories of population, right? This particular category of population, we can say that they are always poor, right? They are always poor, right? They have never jumped above the poverty line, right? And these people which are here, right? So these are, we can say, right? So these people are generally poor, right? Or we can say these people are, right? So we can say generally poor people, right? Generally poor people, right? So And these people which are here, they can be known as churning poor people, right? And these people can be known as, we can say, right, occasionally poor, right, occasionally poor. And these people can be never poor, right, never poor. So these are the various categories of the population in this case, right? So always poor, these are generally poor, right? Generally poor means these people usually remain poor, but sometimes during the year, during a particular season, right? So their income increases and they come out of the poverty line. They come above the poverty line. They come out of the poverty, right? And then when the season crosses, they again, right, move downwards. So this is the case, right? So this can be the case of the, we can say, agricultural laborers, right? Agricultural laborers, because when there is the season of the harvesting, then they're all employed, right? Their income increases, and when the season is off, then we can say, right, they become poor, right? So this is there. Here is the population, you can take it, right? And here you can take it the income. It is basically just to show, right? So don't go for the x-axis or y-axis, right? So these people are churning poor, right? They are sometime rich, sometime poor, sometime rich, sometime poor, sometime rich, sometime poor, right? During the year, right? So this goes like this, right? And then these people are usually rich, usually non-poor, right? But they occasionally fall below poverty line, right? But they occasionally fall below poverty line, we can say, right? And these are those people who have never crossed below the poverty line, right? So this is the population of the country, which can be divided into these 5 categories on the basis of this, we can say. Okay, so this is there. So far we have discussed about the concept of the poverty line, right? So far we have discussed about the concept of the poverty, that what the poverty is, right? So now the next thing is that, right, so where the poverty line, right, where the poverty line is to be fixed, right, is to be fixed. So this is the next point here, right, where the poverty line is to be fixed. So as far as this point is concerned, that where the poverty line is to be fixed, right, so this is a very subjective point, that where the poverty line is to be fixed, right? So it all depends upon the it all varies from country to country, right? It all varies from the place to place, right? It all varies from time to time, right? Because there are the different conditions in different regions of the world, right? So in Canada, the lifestyle is totally different, right? Near the we can say North Pole, the lifestyle is very much different, and similarly, right, near the equator, the lifestyle and the condition and the requirements are very much different. So that is why this all depends, right? So where the poverty line is to be fixed, right? So now, but there are certain, we can say, standards, right? So as far as India's case, right, we fix poverty line in 2 ways, right? So in India, we fix poverty line in 2 ways, right? So one of the way of fixing the poverty line is what? That is on the basis of the calorie intake, right? That is on the basis of a calorie intake. Okay, calories intake. And the second thing is, that is on the basis of income, right? So these are the two, you can say, parameters here, right, to determine the poverty line, we can say here. Okay, in this case. Okay, so now So now the next thing is that, right? So on the basis of calorie intake, we can say that, right, there the calorie intake requirement of 2400 kilocalories, right, in case of the person living in rural, right, for persons living in rural, right, and 2100 kilocalories, right, in case of the person is living in urban. So this is the calorie requirement we can say, right? So next is on the basis of the income, right? On the basis of the income, we can say, right, the what is the income level, right? So in 2011-12, the income level which was fixed, that was rupees 816, right? Rupees 816 income, right, per person per month. So that was there, right, for the rural people, right, and for the urban people it was rupees 1000, right, per person per month. So that was there, right? So this was for rural India, and this was for the urban India, right? And later on this was right, so we can say this is at the rate of, I think, 28 rupees, right, per day for the rural people, and 32 rupees per day for the urban people. It was like that, right? Right. So that is there. So this is how the poverty line is fixed, right? So this is fixed, we can say, arbitrarily on the basis of a basket of commodities which are required to, right, fulfill the basic necessities of life, right? So that is there, right? So this is the issue, right? So this is the point. So is it okay up to this point? I think it's okay, right? So now let us move further from this point, right? So far we have discussed about the poverty line, that what is the poverty line and where the poverty line is fixed as far as this is concerned. All right. So now what is there? So what and the second concept of the poverty line, that is the poverty line fixed by the World Bank, right? So let me take it here. Poverty line fixed by the World Bank. Okay,
ठीक
fixed
है
by the World Bank.
मम
Right.
मैं नहीं खा
So
रही
as far as the World Bank is concerned,
क्यों
right,
मम
the
मैंने
World
नहीं है
Bank
इसको मैं खा रही
has fixed the poverty line,
मैं खाई नहीं रही
right, at
मेरे इसका
dollar
नुकसान हो
one
रहा है
point
बिल्कुल भी
nine zero per person
हाँ
per day. So according to World Bank, right, so dollar
करा मैं बहुत
1.90 per person
ओए जो तूने गिरा है वो
per
साफ कौन
day
करेगा
is the minimum threshold, right, that is required to meet the basic necessities, right, basic necessities to live a life with dignity. Okay, to live a life with dignity. So that is the basic threshold, right? So and this threshold is known as the international poverty line, right? So international poverty line fixed by the World Bank, this is known as the international poverty line. Okay, so the international poverty line fixed by the World Bank is at this level, which is dollar 1.90, right? So per person. Okay, so that's there. Okay, international poverty line, it's there. So I hope this is clear to you up to this point, right? So now the next important thing is that, right, so World Bank categorizes the countries into different categories, right? So let me tell you that what are the various categories according to which the World Bank categorizes the countries, right? So one threshold is here, right? And the second threshold is, let's suppose here, and the third threshold is, let's suppose here. These are the three thresholds, let's suppose, right? So one threshold is at a dollar 1.90, and the second threshold is at dollar 3.10, right? And the 3.20, sorry, dollar 3.20, and the third threshold is at a dollar 5.50, right? Third threshold is at dollar 5.50, right? So accordingly, the World Bank categorizes the world population or categorizes the countries on the basis of the average income, right? On this basis, so these people are known as the poor, right? So this is the poor population in the world, right? Right. So these are the lower middle income, right? Lower middle income poor, right? So these are the upper middle income poor, right? Upper middle income poor, right? And these are the rich. These are not poor, right? So these are categorized as not poor at all, or rich, we can say, right? So this is the categorization of the classification by the World Bank on this basis, right? So please bear this in mind. This is an important concept which I have told you right now. So if one is earning uh, at the rate of right dollar 5.50 or above, that is treated as not poor, right? If the earning of one person, daily earning of one person is above 3.20 but below 5.50, that is the upper middle income poor, right? If the daily earning of one person is above 1.90 but below 3.20, that person will be treated as the middle income poor. And if it is below $1.90, that is treated as the poor, below poverty line. So 1.90, this is the international poverty line. Please bear this in mind. Okay. So this is the international poverty line, right? So World Bank keeps it changing, right? So that means what is there, right? What is there? So it means the percentage of, right? The percentage of poor population in a country, poor population in a country, right, depends on the you can say threshold, okay, at which the poverty line is fixed. Threshold at which the poverty line is fixed. So this is very much important point, at which the poverty line is fixed, right? So that means the governments of the countries can play here, all right? So they can, you can say, right, play trick here, right? So now let us take the case of India, right? So let us take the case of India, right? So in the case of India, let me tell you, right? So this is the uh, poverty line suggested by the, you can say, this World Bank, right? So which is where at $1.90 per person per day, approximately $2, right? So if we take it approximately $2, so let us take it as a 70 into 2, 140 rupees per day. It means approximately rupees 4,000 per month, right? So World Bank's poverty line is fixed at rupees approximately 4,000 per person per month, right? And the poverty line in India has been, by the government of India, that has been fixed at rupees, you can say 1,000, right? So per person per month, right? So this poverty line is fixed at rupees 1,000 per person per month, right? So if we count the poor in India on the basis of the threshold, right, on the basis of the threshold level fixed by the government of India, then the poor people in India are very, very low, right? That is only 10.6% population of India is poor, according to this statistics, right? So, but if we consider the right World Bank's poverty line, which is the international poverty line, $1.90 per person per day. So according to that, right, so India has a very significant proportion of population which is living below the poverty line, which is in the poverty, right? And that is approximately a quarter of population of India is living below poverty, right? So it means what is there? So the poverty line fixation, that is very subjective, right? So uh, right, so one agency can think that no, this should be the poverty line threshold limit, and the other can think that no, this should be the threshold limit. Similarly, one government may say that no, it should be at least 2000 rupees per person per month, right? And the one government can consider that no, 1000 per person per month is sufficient, right? So then accordingly the number of the poor population will change, right? So in this democratic setup, the governments usually manipulate the poverty lines, right, to you can say, right, to show the public that we have made this much progress, right, and the number of the poor people in our country, right, have been reduced to a significant level, right, during our tenure, etc., etc. So it means this is here, right, where the governments or the authorities can play with the numbers of the poor population. Okay, so please bear this in mind. This is another point, right? So the next important point which I would like to discuss with you here, right? So that point is you can say, so right, so identification of the poor people in India, right? So that is the next point, identification of the poor in India. So this is another important issue, important point, right? Identification of the poor in India. Okay. So as far as the identification of the poor in India is concerned, this is a very important issue again, right, from your preliminary examination particularly, right? So identification of poor in India, right? So we can say that the BPL, right, the BPL households in India, right, BPL households in India are identified, right, are identified by the state governments, right, on the basis of, we can say, socio-economic caste census, right, socio-economic caste census, right, 2011, right? So in our country in 2011, SCCC, socio-economic caste census were held, right? And on that basis, right, we identify the BPL households in our country, or we identify the poor population in our country, right? So it is the responsibility of the states to identify the poor population, right? So now what is there? There is a three-stage process of identification of poor in our country, right? So this is the topic which I am teaching you specifically. Otherwise, you won't find it in any book, or nobody in any class will teach you this concept which I am teaching you here, right? So there is a this is a three-stage process basically. Okay, this is a three-stage process. So as far as the three-stage process is concerned, right? So stage one, that is the exclusion process, right? Exclusion, right? So there are certain criteria, right? The households which meet that criteria, those households are excluded from the poor automatically. This is the one point, right? And the second is the inclusion criteria, right? The second is the inclusion criteria, right? The second is the inclusion criteria, right? So now what is there? So whatever the houses have been excluded, so after that, whatever the houses remain, right? So those houses are further, right? You can say studied on the basis of the another criteria, which is known as the inclusion criteria, right? And now what is there after the inclusion criteria, right? Whatever the houses remain, right? So those are further studied, right? So we can say on the basis of the third criteria, which is known as the deprivation criteria, right? Which is known as the deprivation criteria. So BPL families are considered on the basis of the deprivation criteria. Exclusion, inclusion, deprivation. So this is a three-stage process, right? So we can say that like we can say, let me tell you here, right? We can say that one is this, right? So out of this, when we filter the families on the basis of certain criteria, right? So let's suppose this this proportion of population has been excluded automatically. So when this portion of population is excluded, so this will not be considered now, right? So whatever the families are there, those are the included families now, right? So on those included families will be further scrutinized, right, on the basis of the inclusion criteria, right, on the basis of the inclusion criteria, right? And on that basis of inclusion criteria, let's suppose this percentage of population, right? So passes the inclusion criteria. So this is the point here, right? And this percentage of population is remained from that inclusion criteria. So then what would be there, right? So the families which have fulfilled the inclusion criteria, right? So those families, right, would further be studied on the basis of the deprivation criteria, and ultimately the families which pass the deprivation criteria, those families will be categorized as the BPL families, below poverty line families. So this is a very long process, right? So this is not a so simple process, right? So let me teach you now those things, right? So how these three stages, right? Uh, you can say are worked out, right? So how the households are identified on the basis of the criteria of these three stages, right? So stage one, that is known as the automatic exclusion, right? Stage one is the automatic exclusion, right? So as far as the automatic exclusion is concerned, right? By automatic exclusion, right? On the basis of the following criteria, right? The families which fail the following criteria, the households which fail the following criteria, fulfill the following criteria, those are automatically excluded from the poor, the list of the poor, we can say, right? So the criteria are one, let me take here one, because this is the exclusion criteria. So that's why it is written as E1, exclusion criteria one. What is that? Motorized, right? So if a household is having, we can say, right, motorized two, three, four-wheeler, right? Two, three, four-wheeler, right? Or a motorized fishing boat, right? Motorized fishing boat, so that household is excluded from the this uh, list of the poor, right? So second criteria, according to the second criteria, what is there? Right, so mechanized three or four wheeler, mechanized three or four wheeler, right? Three or four wheeler, right? Agricultural equipment, if somebody is having, right? Agricultural equipment, so that is also excluded from this criteria. Now the E3, third criteria which is there, Kisan credit card with a credit limit of, if a household is having Kisan credit card, right, with a credit limit of rupees 50,000 or above, credit limit of rupees 50,000 or above, this is there. Now the fourth criteria, right, which is there, that is the household with any member as government employee, right? So this criteria says that household, okay, with any member as government employee, okay, so that's there, any member as government employee, okay, so that will also be automatically excluded. So E5 criteria, households with the non-agricultural enterprises, right? Households with non-agricultural enterprises registered with the government, okay, registered with the government, so those households are also automatically excluded. The sixth criteria is that any member of the family, right, any member of the family earning more than rupees 10,000 per month, so that is also automatically excluded. So the next is a seventh criteria, that is the, if a member of the family is paying income tax, right, so that family is also automatically excluded from this, right? So next is if a member of the family is paying professional tax, right, so that family would also be automatically excluded, right? So next is the ninth criteria. According to the ninth criteria, right, if a family is having three or more rooms, right, three or more rooms, right, we can say with all rooms, having pakka walls and roof, right, pakka walls and roof, so that family is also automatically excluded. But please bear this in mind that as far as this is concerned, uh, a family is having three or more rooms, right, beta, it is a family. If the family is, you can say, owning such a house, even then it will be excluded. And if the family is uh, right, living in rent on such a house, even that family will also be excluded from right, the list of the poor families, right? So that's there. Next is the E10, if a family is having a refrigerator with it, right, if a family is having a refrigerator with it, right? So next 11th criteria is there, right? If a family is having the, if a household is having the landline phone, right? Next 12th criteria is there. According to the 12th criteria, 2.5 acres or more irrigated land, right? 2.5 acres or more irrigated land, right, more irrigated land with at least one irrigated equipment, with at least one irrigated equipment, okay. So next is the 13th criteria. According to the 13th criteria, there is a 5 acre or more, right? 5 acre or more of irrigated land for 2 or 3 crop seasons, right? 2 or 3 crop seasons, we can say in a year, right? So last criteria is the 14th criteria. According to this criteria, 7.5 acres of land, right? Land or more with at least one irrigation equipment, right? One irrigation equipment. So these are the families which will be automatically excluded from the poverty. This is the automatic exclusion criteria, right? So 14 criterias are there under this automatic exclusion criteria, right? 14 criterias are there. Okay, so please remember this. These are the 14 criterias which are here. Okay, 14 criterias are there, right? So now the point is that those households which are automatically excluded, right, on the basis of this exclusion criteria, right? So what is there? Those shall be automatically included, right? Those will fall in the inclusion automatically, and they shall undergo the inclusion criteria. Right now, the what is the inclusion criteria? So let us discuss that, right? Inclusion criteria. Okay, so now the families are further, right? You can say studied or surveyed on the basis of the inclusion criteria. So as far as the inclusion criteria is concerned, right, because this is the inclusion, so that is why inclusion criteria is written as a I1, right? So I means inclusion. First criteria is a households without shelter. Okay, so those will be included. Second is that, right, we can say destitute, besahara log, or living on alms, ALMS, right, living on alms. Okay, so this is the second criteria which is there. Okay, I'm showing. Okay, you can see it. Have a look at it. Okay, so now this is there, destitute or living on the alms, right? So this is the second criteria. And now as far as the third criteria is concerned, that is the I3, right? According to the third criteria, the persons who are the manual right scavengers, okay? The persons who are the manual scavengers, right? So those will be included. And now I4, right? That is the primitive tribal groups, right? Those are the primitive tribal groups there, right? So those shall also be included. And now the fifth one is that primitive tribal groups. After that, that is legally released bonded laborers, right? Legally released bonded laborers. Okay, so those are the persons, right? Sorry, families, households, right? So which are uh, surveyed according to the inclusion criteria. So these are the 5 inclusion criteria there, right? So how many inclusion criteria are there? 5, right? Exclusion criteria are 14. Okay, so these are the inclusion criteria. 5 inclusion criteria, right? So now the next point is that right. So let me tell you that bonded labor is a form of modern slavery. It is said like that, right? So an individual who works for someone to pay off the debts of that someone, right, is known as a bonded labor, right? Right. So this is the known as that, right? So after the inclusion exclusion criteria, right, the remaining households are ranked on the basis of their degree of deprivation, right? The It means these houses are now further ranked on the basis of the degree of deprivation, right? So now what is there? The houses that pass, okay, the houses that sorry, the households that pass the inclusion criteria, right, are further categorized, right, into seven categories, right, into seven categories on the basis of their deprivation, right, their deprivation determined by the deprivation criteria, okay, determined by the deprivation criteria. So this is the, okay, determined by the deprivation criteria. So now what is the deprivation criteria, right? So it means those families who fulfill the deprivation criteria, right? So we can say, right, so they will be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, right? So they are determined according to that, right? So those families which are having the maximum of the seven deprivation indicators, so those families are considered as the highest priority families for inclusion in the list of the BPL, right? So those are considered as the highest, right, priority families for the inclusion in the list of the BPL, right? So now let us study that deprivation criteria. What is that deprivation criteria? Okay, deprivation criteria, because deprivation criteria, it applies on these families, right? So the families after the inclusion, right? Like I showed you in sorry, like I show you in the previous slide, na? So this is right. So this part of the families, right? So deprivation criteria is applied on those, because first is exclusion. After after exclusion, the remaining families are treated as the included families, right? So on the included families, inclusion criteria is applied on the basis of that, right? So whatever the families pass that criteria, right? So this is the we can say percentage of the families that have passes that inclusion criteria, right? So now their categorization is further done on the basis of the deprivation indicators, right? So whether a family is depriving on one, you can say factor, whether it is depriving on two factors, three factors, four factors, five factors, six factors, or seven factors, right? So accordingly, the families are, or the households are prioritized for inclusion in the PPL list. Okay, is it clear, Nishank? Hello, Nishank or Asika? I don't know whose question was that. Okay, clear. Okay, let's say. So now let us move further, right? So now the deprivation criteria, let me discuss this deprivation criteria now. Deprivation criteria is D1, right? D1, households with only one room. One criteria is this: households with only one room, right? With only one room, kacha wall, okay, kacha wall and kacha roof, right? Kacha wall and kacha roof. This is the one criteria. And the second criteria is a household is having no adult member between the age of 16 and 59, right? No adult member between the age of 16 and 59. Second criteria. And the third criteria is female headed households, right? Female headed households, okay, with no male member between the age of 16 and 59. Okay? Between the age of 16 and 59. And the next is that is the D4, right? That is the households with disabled members, households with the disabled member, and no able-bodied adult member, and able-bodied, no able-bodied adult member. So that is the household, right? That household is also considered for this purpose. Next is the fifth criteria. As far as the fifth criteria is concerned, that is the SC/ST households, right? SC/ST households. Next is the sixth criteria. On the basis of the sixth criteria, households with no right households with no literate adult above 25 years. With no literate adult above 25 years. Next is right seventh. So households right, deriving here condition is the landless households. Landless households deriving, we can say, right, a major part of their income, deriving a major part of their income from manual casual labor, right, from manual casual labor. So this is the criteria, right? These are the 7 criteria. On the basis of these 7 criteria, the households are categorized, right? And accordingly, the preference for the inclusion of those households into the BPL list is determined or is decided, right? So this is the point. I think this point is clear to you up to this point. Any doubt up to this point? Okay. Okay, it's clear. Okay. So, beta, I think today I am closing the lecture here, right? Terminating my lecture here, because in today's lecture we have discussed about the poverty concept. We have discussed that what is the poverty line, right? We have discussed about the poverty line in India. We have discussed about international poverty line. We have discussed the 4 categories. One is the below poverty line, which is the BPL. Second is the lower middle income poor. Third is the upper middle income poor, and fourth is the non-poor, according to the World Bank criteria. That is $1.90, dollar 3.20, and dollar 5.50. That is the income level there. Okay. So this is there, right? And then we have discussed that identification of poor in India, right? So poor are identified in India by the state governments on the basis of the socio-economic caste census, which were held in 2011, right? And on that basis, right, the households are surveyed faster on the basis of the there is a 3-stage process, right? So first the households are surveyed for the exclusion purpose, right? Out of the total households which are excluded, the remaining households are known as the included households, right? So yes. SCCC is held every 10 years, right? So now with the next thing is that right after the exclusion, whatever the houses remain, those are the automatically included houses, right? So then there is the inclusion criteria which is applied on those included houses, right? And after the inclusion criteria is done, right? So the houses that pass the inclusion criteria, right? So those households are further categorized into 7 categories on the basis of the deprivation indicators, right? Deprivation indicators, right? The one household, right, which fulfills the maximum of the 7 indicators, right? So that household is given the highest priority for inclusion into the BPL list. Okay. So this is the simple thing. I suggest you to revise the lecture today, please, right? So, and kindly, I have given